In this HeroQuest Tactica vlog, we're going to explore player movement, some of the different strategies and things to keep in mind tactically as we navigate the various quests. And as always, there are going to be no spoilers. The quests, the discoveries, the magic items, the loot, they are yours to discover. I just want to give you some tactical perspectives on how to go about doing that. So what we see in terms of a dungeon crawler, when it's your turn, movement is literally random. You're rolling to see how many spaces that you can move in the dungeon. Now, depending on the quest and some gear, there are ways to potentially modify this, but at its core, it's random. And for some players, this can be a little bit frustrating. One of the things that we see as a player character in a dungeon crawler is we want to be able to control our character. We want to be able to make decisions and then play out the tactics. So if you're constantly rolling to move and you can't count on or you can't guarantee the spread of movement, how does that play into the Tactica? Now, from the narrative perspective, it makes sense. I mean, think about the tabletop physical board game. You're seeing everything from a player perspective, but if we enter the theater of the mind, you're in a dungeon, whether that's underground or a mountaintop or a wizard's tower. What's the lighting like in there? What's the environmental effects like in there? This idea, if we're deep underground, are there water effects? Are things a little bit unstable? So that random movement kind of, in my opinion, represents the fact that you are navigating very carefully. There literally could be a monster right around the corner, but you're also taking into account lighting, other effects, and the physical environment. So it makes sense from that narrative perspective. But in terms of the rules, and this is one of the things that I really appreciate about HeroQuest, the strength of the game is its simplicity. What I mean by that within this framework is it's essentially a one versus many game. You've got 1 to 4 heroes going up against an overlord type player. And with that in mind, you optimize and you plan out the best you can in player turns. So I'm going to go here, I'm going to open the door, and I'm going to block. The wizard's going to move here. The dwarf is going to move there. The knight is going to move here and do this and cover the side in case more monsters spawn, right? You come up with some tactica. By making it random, it forces you as a player, as a team, possibly in that moment to reevaluate your tactics. So I'm going to go open the door. You're going to move here. The knight's going to cover the side corridor. The knight really doesn't roll that well and gets a little bit stuck. Well, is this a chance for some of the monsters and how they exploit to then start pouring in? How do we navigate that? So maybe now the wizard is up and it's the wizard's turn. Do I want to take that risk and continue the plan as is, or would I be better off trying to move, and I don't want to say get in front of the knight because I'm a little bit squishy, but support the knight or support that other player? It offers an interrupt, a random interrupt within the game, so the players need to tactically respond. You might have to readjust your plans in the moment, compared to, say, some other dungeon crawler board games, which are kind of plug and play where you just plan all your moves and you execute them without flaw. I do understand for some players, kind of with that Euro background, you want to control every aspect of the game. But in HeroQuest, not only are dice involved, so right there we have random. You can influence the dice with some spell abilities and magic items, but for the most part, it's random. And then on top of that, you're going into a random dungeon in that the Overlord knows the layout and the monsters, but you literally don't. It's a game of randomness and exploration that you have to adapt the tactics to. So the roll and move, I enjoy that mechanic. I think it captures that theme, but it offers some tactica and be ready to readjust in the moment.